gonna be fine.
He's a little anxious.
A little anxious. Yeah.
Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
What?
Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
Does anybody want mashed potatoes and gravy?
I didn't ruin that one, and I did watch it.
Part
So.
of it or no?
Go ahead.
Because I'm gonna eat it all.
It's all.
Do you want any of them?
All of that by yourself.
I usually eat a large one by myself. It's my favorite part of KFC.
I kind of like the coleslaw, which is weird because I don't like mayonnaise. I don't know what they put in there to like hide the mayonnaise.
Miracle Whip.
Oh, it's whoa, you guys.
What sugar? I mean,
Yeah, it's like, what is it, sugar, honey, something
Yeah.
like that. Anything that has sugar in it. Oh, yeah, at least it didn't ruin Sixth Sense. If you ruin that, like, what's the point of seeing the movie? That was a good movie. I saw it at a drive-in, though. So, like, anybody who was, like, walking by, I was freaking out.
Yeah, leave like
I know, they don't even have drive-ins anymore.
They do back. We have them back home. I never went to it though.
No, like go to scary movies.
Looks like always a date thing. I was like, that's.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I saw it with my brother. Now, what part of you're from the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
What part?
Vermont.
Okay, so I can bag on New York a little bit.
Well, technically I'm from New York, but
Yeah,
New York
like New York City.
Yeah,
New York
no,
City.
not New York City.
Oh my god.
I'm 4.5 hours away from New York
Okay,
City.
good. Yeah, it's playing well there over spring break. It's my third time there, but I'm like, every time I go, I'm just like so over it.
I went there when I went home in November,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, I don't know why I like only come down here for school. It's just,
Exactly right.
like this most sketch place in the world.
And everyone just talks. Like, there's no reason, you know what I mean? Like,
You're not going anywhere.
you're not going anywhere, and you're pretty much used to this always being the way your day looks. So, like,
Yeah.
what's the surprise in Hawkins?
Is that what they say about New York? I've never been, but it's like people romanticize it too much.
Oh my god.
Then you go there, it's like rats and stuff.
It's nice in like downtown, like midtown
Right,
Manhattan,
right.
and
Which is where we were.
like Ellis
And
Island and Long Island. But I mean, as far as like the rest of Manhattan, it's a shithole.
I mean, I love Central Park. That's where you can totally romanticize it. But
Yeah, let's go to certain parts of Central Park and
and then full on day. Yeah, don't go at night.
Yeah, don't go at night. Yeah.
Even dusk, like the sun starts setting, you're out of there. Oh my gosh, yeah. So this chapter, like, as I came back and I was reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes were crossing.
I'm giving it a chance to make up for this one.
And I was telling, well, as long as you guys get the rule out of it, like, I'm not testing on chapter 9, so you know.
So nobody's gonna die in our final.
No. I haven't seen anyone yet die in a community property exam.
I guess the bar
really
question.
crossover, though.
I think the bar question this year for
Mhm.
February was community property probate crossover.
Oh, see, didn't I say?
Just make it fun of murder community podcast.
That's a good
With the
one.
Slayer statutes and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Although I do like how there was the one case in here that's like, oh, he didn't change his beneficiary, so she gets all of it. And then right after, it's like, oh, once again, like the majority of the cases in this book, this is no longer the law, so sorry to waste your time.
We wasted 20 pages to hide with the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so fair. So, but for me, I know you guys, when you're studying for the bar, you're going to relearn it using, do you guys do Barbary?
Yeah,
Is that what you do?
that's what I
I
got.
love Barbary. It just breaks it down so much easier. So at least you'll walk away with the actual law when you go into the bar exam. All right, let me just see who got what case. And sorry, I think I sprung a case. Was it on you, Victor?
I figured it was on the favorite, right?
Yeah, sorry, Victor.
Give him the other long case.
She just knew you could handle it.
Yeah.
Just throw him around 20 pages, that's fine.
It's a compliment.
It's my Marvel superhero.
I was just snapping half my faces.
Yeah, like, I
Nope,
feel-
they're gone.
Oh my gosh. Oh well, I think you guys will probably get out early tonight because I don't have any review. I figured I'd say that for next week.
And that was the end of the book, right?
And that's the end of the book.
Oh, did we actually finish this book?
Yeah.
We got like 2 chapters left in our other class.
Yeah, we have 2 chapters left in each of the other classes.
Really? Oh wow. No, when I was trying to figure out how to divide up this book, that was my goal. But you guys were really good with understanding things. And community property is not that challenging, really.
It's
It's
Like a whole subject to the
4L class. Like,
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my god, what can I do with community
knock it down to
property?
3L, get rid of one of those BS classes.
Mm-hmm.
Make
And I
business
kind of wish they would
associations
teach like just all
Yeah.
family law, and then it would take up more time,
But-
like all aspects of it.
Well, they structured the 4 years so that we have to have enough hours for the bar, right?
Yeah.
Business associations really could be a whole year.
But it's-
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was.
How was it? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
When you go to a real law.
But like immigration, what is that? A semester?
No, it's like 3 weeks.
Oh.
It's immigration, tribal, bankruptcy
Oh, I see.
in 1 semester.
Oh, that's nice.
But we don't get it pass fail. There's no tests, there's no nothing, there's
Oh,
no
you
reading.
should.
I mean, it's just pass fail.
How nice is that? So you just read and you
But
sign.
I'd rather not have that and have this be like 3L year and then have business associations split between corps and business
But
associations.
I actually think though that there's a certain amount of electives that we must have. And so what they did is they basically shoved them all into 1 semester.
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't really learn anything in 3 weeks.
No, that's
Yeah.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. It's almost like a seminar.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
Kinda.
like I went to a seminar and learned everything I needed to know about bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay, so I guess we get started so Vincent can go to his movie.
Yes.
I
Seeing
don't
as I have to spend an hour with the cat before I go. So.
Same with you.
What?
Same with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him to the movie.
Okay, Ben Ali. Actually, when I read this case, I kind of loved it.
I laughed. I was
I was just like, oh, this is so twisted. So I did like this case.
This case is messed up.
I'm
not so happy you're a fan.
Right, I know.
Dead, I'm screwed.
Can you believe that?
Pretty much.
Hiding your kid in the building. Like,
Oh, there, I don't think you-
Oh,
Okay.
Spoiler.
I stole your thunder.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much what happened in this case. We have is people contesting a will. So what had happened is the Turek, the guy that supposedly wrote the will, went missing for a couple years, I guess. And his father said, "No, he's fine. He started to move on his own life. He blah, blah, blah. You never gonna see him again. He wants to do something." Turns out, Turk was found dead in a hotel room from a drug overdose. His dad, being the nice guy that he is, took him from that embarrassing scenario and put him into, hit him into a wall. That was messed up, yeah.
So messed up. Out of everything I've ever read in law school, this was the worst case I've ever read.
Yeah. He hit him in a wall, essentially, while forging his signature and draining all his money and stuff. And then, Hassan died also. And then they found his will, but they also found Tariq's will. Now that's the will in question, because the first levels of courts, they accepted the will because it was signed and had witnesses and everything, but essentially they went back to the probate code where it's well, it has to be signed, but the witnesses have to be aware that it's a will they're signing, not the president of the room.
Right.
You show no evidence as to that. These witnesses they don't even remember signing it. They think, I don't know, one of them said that, oh yeah, they gave me something to sign, and they said it was for some kind of medical thing. They didn't even know what he was saying. So, the appellate court said you can't do that.
Yeah.
They also went down saying, well, this Houseman guy had a whole series, bunch of evidence. This is a big con artist.
Some credibility issues.
Yeah, so he had a series of shady dealings he's done before,
Oh
lying,
my gosh.
forging notary signatures, and so the court said, we're not going to let this one just because it didn't really follow the rule of
Right.
2 witnesses that have to be aware of the.
Exactly, and even to identify who the heck signed this. I get that all the time in the court where people will sign a proof of service but not print their name. So it's it's just a squiggle. Like, how are you ever going to call this person as a witness if you have no clue what the name is? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I think that, I mean, this is a very, very long case to just say, like, you need two witnesses. That
You need to have two
identify.
witnesses that you can identify as.
Right. That was it.
So yeah, it was like 20 pages to go back to the room with her and probate. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Right.
I didn't have to get scarred with all
I
this
just
murder.
can't believe it
involved.
went like this far up though, you know? Like, I think when they got this case, they're like, this would be a really good case for a law school class. 'Cause
What,
it's so-
what makes it family law? Is it just that these people were his heirs? I mean, it's kind of related.
I think so,
Like
like
the wife?
yeah, like you hear wife, oh, family law.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I
All
think
it
that's
was is
right.
like they never mentioned, you know, he never talked to his wife about not leaving or anything.
Mm-mm.
So.
Yeah, just because he had a wife, they like threw it into family law.
He murdered while married. Get textbooks. That's awesome.
And Levine, let's see, Levine was, let me see what Levine was about. Yeah, Levine wasn't that exciting. Who had Levine?
I do it.
Oh, okay, good luck. Hi.
Excuse me, I know you probably will say no, but we are having cake.
You know, I will say yes. I was just, you know, I just started my diet, but.
Oh, manana. It's Sarah's birthday.
Oh,
Sarah's
she's
Oh, I had to get Barely remember he was born in the summertime.
What happens if you're born in summertime?
Well, then you're fucked.
You don't get
I totally missed this.
No, because he's like, there's so many birthdays. And I'm like, yeah, clearly nobody was born in the summertime.
Hi, good to see you.
This is not an official picture taking phone.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Clara. Happy birthday to you. Oh,
That's true.
Single question.
We're like one of those face masks.
Because you don't want to be like,
He's like, close your eyes.
you don't want to take probably have to drop this just to leave my markings. Oops!
And then he steps on it. Oops! Again! Now you're never gonna get it out.
Okay, quiz. How many witnesses do you need for a will?
2. Unless it's a holographic will, then you don't need that.
Do you have to read their signatures and know who signed?
Unfortunately.
Yes. There you go. You passed this the quiz. Oh my goodness. Okay, Levine. I can't even recall what Levine is about.
Okay, so in Levine, it was 2 elderly people-ish who got married late in life. They already had families with each other. Mr. Levine decided that he was going to sell his home and buy the community home for the couple. However, when talking to his attorney, he instructed him to put the deed, and they instructed everybody, to put the deed as joint tenancy. However, he said that in all actuality, it was not going to be a joint tenancy home.
That's the case.
It was only going to be
for his convenience.
it was going to be joint tenancy for convenience only, and that because he wanted to devise his one half of the home to his children, but the reason that he put it in joint tenancy was so that if the wife predeceased him, he wanted to prevent her from giving her half of the home to her kids.
We got a deal.
So it's kind of
right? Like, we got a deal.
Yeah, and so his attorney advised him against it, stating, if something happens, it's going to go to her. And he's like, no, we have an agreement, this and that. And he's like, all right. So they drew it up, and it was deeded as a joint tenancy home. Well, he died first. And yeah, and so it came up in probate to decide who gets the home. Does the wife get all of the home as a joint tenant, or does she only get a 50% share of the home with his kids getting the remaining 50%? And the issue became basically, did he tell her? And was there an agreement between the two? Because it said the document itself just raises the presumption that it is a joint tenancy home, but it can be rebutted by an agreement and evidence of the agreement by the parties. And they said the only evidence of the agreement was the testimony that there never was an agreement. And so they basically said that if you put something as joint tenancy, it's going to be joint tenancy unless you have a written agreement, otherwise stating that it's a community property asset.
Exactly. So, and that's just like a little practice pointer, because family law attorneys rarely do this. When someone comes in and they want a divorce and you're looking at like their assets and debts, and you definitely want to see the deed of the home, because a lot of people forget to revoke the joint tenancy and then they die. And then that, like, as you've seen, that whole home goes to the ex, even though if they revoked the joint tenancy, left it to their heirs. But a lot of family law attorneys do that. I think only maybe once when I was in private practice did that ever happen. And so it's a good thing we revoked that. So it doesn't happen that often where people remember to do it, but when it does happen, that's like a lot of money that you just lost. So, all right.
So you recommend adopting each other's kids?
No, because of that one case where I told you 11-day trial to adopt the child.
Oh, yeah.
That's nuts.
Wow.
She divorced
2 months later, she files for divorce. Dang. And like the bio dad was such a loser, and this new guy had a good job. She knew exactly what she was doing, because it's child support. And the kid is like 4, so it's going to be a while.
I would have fought for custody. It's my kid now.
It's messed up.
It really is. Okay, I did like this case, the life insurance one.
Okay, so this is old law.
Thank you for
It's good, but it's fine.
This is a little law. Okay, we're done.
So you're like, no, I remember reading a case about it.
All right, so there is a police officer and there's 2 wives, an ex-wife named Gloria and a wife who's going to marry named Graciela. So in 1998, he was married to Gloria and designated her his beneficiary for a life insurance policy. It's a term life insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
In 2002, they separated. In 2004, they divorced. And in 2005, Jerry, the police officer, was advised several times by his attorney to change his beneficiaries, that she would get everything, that his ex would get everything if something happened.
Mm-hmm.
He did nothing. He took no steps to change anything. Now, in May of 2005, later that year, he gets married to Graciela, and then like a week later he dies. Oh no, sorry. He goes on his honeymoon, and in like 4 days? So he comes back on the 31st. No, it's a month later. So he comes back on the 31st, and then on the 24th, June 24th, he gets shot and dies.
Mm-hmm.
So the argument is, so the insurance company just interpled the money to the court, naming both individuals as the defendant and basically let them fight over it.
Yeah.
And so the basic rule is that we look to the language of the property settlement agreement, and the general language in a marital settlement agreement will not be construed to include an assignment or renunciation of an expectancy interest conferred on the named beneficiary of an insurance policy, or will, unless it clearly appears that the agreement was intended to deprive either spouse of such a right. So the language needs to be specific, it can't be broad.
Mm-hmm.
Here, what they bring is this idea that, quote, all right, title, and interest in any and all petitioners' retirement pension of 457B, 401k, or other deferred benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It is easily arguable whether the term life insurance policy is a deferred benefit. It's not specific under the rule. And Jerry knew that she was going to get everything if he didn't change it.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that at the time of his divorce, his attorney told him multiple times, and he basically chose not to act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a real, and so that's the rule that Gloria is a named beneficiary. Now they do split it up a little bit. It's kind of weird since it was a term life insurance policy. They do give Gloria 6.45% based on 4 days out of that month, which is really goofy, I think. But I guess that makes sense. It's a term policy.
Yeah.
You have to. It's based on paying on the last month.
Right.
And the kids got something too, I think, is what they said. But Gloria got a huge windfall of $500,000, even though the dissent discusses how he despised her.
Did you love in the dissent? Like, it was a really good dissent until it got to the part where it was saying, like, he would be screaming from his grave. Like, that's a little much for a judicial opinion.
Right.
He were teased yelling from his grave when the majority issues its opinion.
Right. It was an interesting dissent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the result is wrong.
Right.
But the legal analysis in the majority opinion is absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate, but they needed to change the law, and they did.
Right. And I think that, as far as what the dissent was saying was, he knew he didn't do it, but then they also said at the same time, he was dating someone, he's getting married, he's on his honeymoon.
I probably would have left. Yeah, exactly. It was like 3 weeks after he got back from his honeymoon, he died.
Right.
So he had a 3-week window to do this. It wasn't like he waited a year.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm not sure about the despising her thing. If that was the issue, then you probably would just immediately change over to your children.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably leave my ex-spouse on it.
Mm-hmm. If they had children together.
If we had children, with the idea that I'll change it once I get married, once we're married.
Right. Because who else is going to get it?
Well, because if you change it before the marriage, then the kids are still under the former spouse, I would think, and
exactly. Well, I had someone in one of my workshops at the courthouse say, oh, I'm just gonna leave her on as the beneficiary because I don't have anyone else to leave it to.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, you know, I better go to somebody, and like you said, at least they might have had kids together and everything like that. Yeah, so, but that was an interesting case too. The next case. The dogs. This was the worst case in my opinion.
So this one was kind of convoluted, but
Yeah. See, this is why Victor got 2 cases, because he got the sun in the wall. So I'm like, I can't really give it to Vincent after doing Dawes.
So in Dawes, what had happened was the husband and wife were married. Husband had a mobile home park that he was basically, I guess, a landlord for, an owner of. The tenants initiated a bunch of lawsuits against him and his partner. While the lawsuits were going on, they decided to set up some testamentary trusts in case one of them predeceased the other.
Mm-hmm.
Trust A would get the 1/2 community would be funded with the survivor's 1/2 share of the community property and would be revocable by the survivor. Trust B would have the maximum amount allowable under the federal gift and estate tax marital deduction and would be funded from the decedent's 1/2 share of the community property. And Trust C would be the residue.
Mm-hmm.
So the wife ends up dying and everything gets split between the 3 trusts.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go to probate because there were trusts involved, and so it doesn't have to go to probate. And ultimately, she died in 1990, and there were judgments done in 92, 93, and 96 by the tenants in favor of the tenants against the husband. And so after all the judgments were entered on behalf of the tenants, they went after Mr. Dawes, who filed for bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court said that they had jurisdiction over Trust A because he owned it and it was revocable,
Mm-hmm.
but they said they didn't have jurisdiction over Trust B and C because they were irrevocable and the husband wasn't even a trustee on them, it was their kids.
Exactly.
And so they appealed, stating that because they ended up getting writs of execution still somehow for Trust B's and C. And so the trustees filed a petition in the probate court stating for a determination that the trust assets weren't subject to the writs. The probate court said that they had so the probate court actually said that they could go after the funds within Trust B and C, and the trustees, no, they didn't. No, okay, sorry. They filed the writs.
Uh-huh.
The probate court said that they were not able to get into them because upon the death of Mrs. Dawes, the assets were transferred, they lost their community property, and therefore her money was no longer liable for the community's debts.
Mm-hmm.
The court, when it went up on appeal, they basically stated that this was a really weird situation. They said that normally you're still liable for your community share of the community debts, and that when you die, the creditors are still put on notice that you died, and so if they want to go after anything that they can.
Mm-hmm.
There was no statutes on file, though, about if a spouse dies, when a creditor can go after the surviving spouse's, deceased spouse's community share of the community property.
Right. And how much? Yeah.
So the only statutes were how long can a creditor wait to go after a deceased person's share of their property.
Right.
And they said that a suit had to be initiated within 1 year if it was if there's just normal deaths, and I think this is something about a 3-year statute if there was fraud or something like that involved.
Mm-hmm. Like a fraudulent transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
which I kind of feel like how do we not know, like, more
This
facts
seems-
about, yeah, exactly, like, wasn't there a hint of it somewhere where like, oh my gosh, there's all these tenants filing lawsuits? But okay, I thought I was the only one who might have picked up on, like, we didn't even really discuss. what-
Yeah, no, they said if there was some kind of a fraudulent transfer,
Uh-huh.
then that takes it out of the statute or something like that.
Right, right.
And so they basically stated that although the rule is harsh, the 1 year statute is really, the one. They said once the funds lose their community nature, the creditors for the surviving spouse can't go after it because it's no longer community.
Mhm.
Therefore, the surviving spouse has no claim to it for the creditors to go after it.
Mhm.
And they also said that if they do want to go after the deceased spouse's separate community property assets, that they need to file within the 1 year statute that is applied for if they were going after the actual debtor themselves.
Right.
And so they said here that, even though all the judgments were entered after death and they'd have no way of knowing,
Mhm.
the court has to be able to dispose of a probate estate if one is needed in a short amount of time to clear it out of courts and stuff like that. And there has to be a finalization of the judgments. So they said they couldn't collect anything.
Right, and they were saying that the 1 year is sufficient time for everyone to kind of do, I guess, due diligence investigation. Yeah, exactly. But that was a very convoluted case. Like if it was going in one direction and then going in another direction, you're like, what is the rule of this case? But I think that one was pretty interesting to know. But I did kind of feel like there should have been some discussion about a possible fraudulent transfer. Like they were setting this up, in my opinion, to avoid paying creditors, but no one knew like both parties were gonna die.
Well, the problem I think is, they set up the trusts in 1983,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing was done until everything wasn't done until 96.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 13-year difference. It's
Right, right. I just felt like, what was it?
and it was testamentary. It's not like they transferred them into irrevocable trusts from the get-go,
Right.
so that nobody could go after it. It was, if we die, this is how things are going to get set up. It's not like we know you're dying, or at least there's no facts to say they knew one of them was dying.
Mm-hmm. It was just this one sentence in here. It said, like a hint of it, again, not just overt fraud, but commencing, it is on page 765, commencing in 1980, the tenants engaged in litigation against the parties. And so then it was just kind of like, oh, it's like a little hint of, we're going to get sued, so
Yeah.
maybe we pursue, some other type of trust to protect the assets. But you're right. By the time that it went all the way to where it ended up, it was many, many years later. So.
I think it'd be different if they originally put it into like an irrevocable trust, because then nobody would have any access to it.
True. Yeah. No, it was a really well planned out idea that ended up saving them a lot of money for their kids. Okay, Collection Bureau.
Right, so this was scary and kid. Yeah, collection
Kid in
agency.
the wall. Oh my.
You got a collection agency, so that makes it scary. It's a kid in the wall.
I'm trying to collect like $100,000 from something that happened already, like over here. So we have this collection company that's trying to get clever. There's a debt. This guy's wife incurred a lot of medical expenses while she was in the hospital.
Right.
I got the exact number, but it was like upwards of $100,000.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere in here.
Yeah, so upwards of $100,000, and it's been like 3 years, almost 4, like 4 days away from 4 years. One of the statutes says, after your spouse dies, you have 1 year to claim anything. It's gone. So no one can collect on her debts anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But this company is saying, well, there's this other family code statute that says you're responsible for all the debts of the necessities of life your
Mhm.
spouse incurred while you were married.
Right.
And this whole hospital stay thing was a necessity of life. Therefore, it falls out of that one statute of limitations, and it has its own cause of action. that has a statute of limitations of 4 years. And in this one, they filed it like 4 days away from the deadline. And they're alleging, hey, we filed before the deadline.
Can you
And
imagine?
they also said, you made us wait this long to file it because you kept saying you were going to pay us and you never did.
Right.
So it's your fault too. And now, they're up in the court and this guy's probably freaking out. It's like,
Right. And it was 103,000,
Yeah.
almost 104.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's what that's pretty scary, if you lose your wife, now they're coming after you for the money.
Exactly.
How's that fair?
Exactly.
And so,
And she didn't even live.
You know what I look at it as? If you die in the hospital, then it wasn't a necessity of
That's
life.
what I'm like, but
because
did
you're
you
dead.
live? Yeah.
but did you die?
But did you die? Yeah, I did actually. So you don't
So,
shit.
Obviously, it wasn't really necessary for me to be here.
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily. I was gonna die anyway.
It wasn't a necessity of life.
Alright, so this
It was
was
a
like
necessity of the next 30 minutes because that's all I live.
So this went like past the Court of Appeals and like the higher courts and stuff. They said, you know what? No, this were the case, and if we were to what the appellate court said were true, this would like ruin all kinds of litigations. Because then you will have all these creditors bidding for this necessity of life thing instead of just letting the debts die. You're gonna open up a bunch of lawsuits. They're unnecessary. People are just trying to want the life. They said you can't do that. The 1 year statute, you have to claim anything after 1 year after the person dies.
Yeah.
That's it.
And who better to know that person died in the hospital, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
like, what are you waiting for? Like, firsthand they died.
Yeah, for you see the
So it's not like they're having
the
to-
bill.
Yeah, they're not having to research anything, Yeah, that one was kind of scary to think about. But
Oh yeah, not to dump her like right before
you're sick, I'm out of here.
But even
Just
necessity
need
of
to-
life things, even while a divorce is pending, you're still liable for, right?
Exactly. Until
So you're still
Yeah.
screwed.
Mhm.
Unless you get the dissolution on the day that she goes into the hospital, or the hour that she goes into the hospital, you're still in there.
No, I'm writing into my vows, so it's not your part of the contract.
Till almost death do we part.
Instead of in sickness
Within an hour of your death do we part.
No, you just cut out words. Instead of in sickness and in health, you just say just in health.
Just
I'm
in
not
health.
saying-
In health. In very good health and in slightly good health,
Yes.
but still has to be good.
Oh my god, did you guys see Adele is getting divorced?
Yeah. Someone's like, her next album's gonna be fire.
Yeah.
She
And
hasn't made music in a while. That makes sense.
Yeah, because she hasn't been sad.
Yeah.
Can't be whiny and sad if you're happy.
No prenup.
Oh, no prenup?
No prenup.
Oh, lucky.
$180 million.
Yeah, but it's talent.
See? But apparently.
It's talent, and most of that was probably created before they were married because
most of it was.
she released the album before they were married, I think.
I think in her speech, she dropped the bomb oh, I'm married. Like in her
But
Grammys or whatever.
If you drop an album, right? The album's out there. Everything that accrues from that,
Mm-hmm.
It's not a community, right?
yeah, it's all separate, right? Even if
It's all rent
And then the
income,
talent
even
part.
if income
Yeah.
comes in during marriage.
So they won't do Prayer Bank Camp because it's all your pure talent. Right? But
But it's all just separate property, so they wouldn't even have to do anything like that, right? Because
well, it depends whatever she was. See, I don't know enough about Adele, when her records, but I thought the last good record she had, she wasn't married yet.
no, I don't think I think she got married after she
Yeah.
released
So the only thing I could see is
concert stuff.
child support, spousal support, through the roof, and then what her income was.
Oh yeah, she has a kid, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But she probably keep the kids, so she probably wouldn't even have to pay spousal
Oh,
support.
you're on tour. Maybe not. Maybe
She
going
can
to
buy a nanny.
Literally buy her.
Yeah, buy the nanny. You are my slave now.
Oh yes, I was like, oh Adele, oh my gosh. But yeah, and then and the other reason I brought that up was because I watch all those trash TV shows where they interview. But she was just War of the Roses, where she's like, literally, I owe everything to my spouse. Literally, because I guess he was her manager or something.
But she's not even American, is she?
British.
Yeah, so do they even have community property?
I don't know where
I don't know what that is.
But that's where they filed for divorce.
Yeah,
You gotta
if they
file
filed in California, I'm not quite certain. Maybe New York, but they live in New York.
I don't know.
Maybe. I'm like either California or New York if they live out here. So, and then I don't know what you guys want to do for next week. That's why I thought, like, if you want to email me any of your specific questions or concerns or areas you're still like, I'm not really too sure about.
I think that's a good idea, like, it's just, you know, a review plus, I mean, I plan to study this weekend and to know a lot more what I don't know.
Right, like,
on,
yeah,
like,
that's like
Monday,
gives
you
you
know?
more time to kind of figure out, I'm not really too sure about this. And then next week, I'm also gonna kind of emphasize the areas that I know will be on the test, subtly emphasize. So, you know, like, I'm just trying to figure out where it is.
California.
California, okay, you're faster than I
They were
am.
married in 2011. They filed in California because they own property here and the husband's business is here.
Cha-ching, that's like 8 years of like, you know, income right there.
I'm trying
She
to-
didn't make it to the 10-year mark, so that's pretty smart.
She pulled in over $12 million in 2017 from the most recent album, 2015's 25. So they were married for 4 years before the album dropped.
Yeah, but then I'm sure she doesn't just make money from the album, right? She probably has
She was like
investments.
so secretive about all that.
Uh,
Wow.
The green card
marriage?
She won't be. She owns everything again, so that's gonna come fast.
This is saying she got married in 2017. Is that what you were saying?
No, this says they were married in 2011.
See?
Maybe that was her last song.
Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia says 2016. I
Oh,
just know what
jeez,
knows.
nobody knows.
I
He's not even real. She's
You
just.
know where we can find it? She probably filed in Los Angeles.
You're gonna look it up in the court.
I'm gonna hack the Los Angeles Superior Court. On LA's website, they have a section for like famous cases on the
Really?
website where you just click and read all the famous cases.
That's sad. You're gonna put you on blast just because you're famous.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you serious? One day I was just kind of cruising LA's website because we always try to copy other course ideas. But they have like famous cases.
So it says that they wed in 2011 and they link an article to People. And then in People, it says that they met in 2011 but kept the relationship private until they announced her pregnancy in 2012.
But I don't think they got married.
I don't think they got married in 2011.
Yeah,
so.
I think they got married like they already had the child when they got married.
So maybe it'll be lucky for her.
Yeah, like if it was 2017, she got lucky. But yeah, it's weird no one really knows.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Gotta get the dude all his spousal support then. Anything like that?
I'm just looking at all the things that she's owned. I'm like, damn.
No.
She owns a mansion in Beverly Hills for 9.5 million to 13 million. She has a 3-bedroom home in Van Nuys for 650,000. Oh, but he's rich too.
Oh, he is.
And he has
All the stuff you bought.
1 million in the banks.
Wow.
How much?
$1 million.
Is it? It's not enough.
No, it's not enough. I
It's
mean,
not for me, but it's not.
Oh my gosh.
she just sold one of her houses for 1.9 to 3.8 million. She also she owns a house in London for that much, and then she owns another house in Kensington for 14.2 million.
But does she own it, or
Yeah, no,
is it
she owns it.
mortgaged?
And then she just
That's a good
sold.
question, though.
I could own a $20 million mansion tomorrow, but I'm not gonna. But I'm gonna owe like $20 million on it.
She just sold her house in West Sussex she put it on the market for 9.4 million. She sold a house in Brighton for 3.7
But-
So many houses.
I doubt she's paying cash for all that
And
stuff.
she was,
I mean, she's probably gonna get a mortgage. I mean,
she netted 1.1 million in profit from that sale. And then she sold a mansion in East Sussex in February for 3.8 million.
Wow.
And then she pulled in over 12 million from the sales of her most recent album. And then, so her net worth is 69 million.
Whoa.
And then Dale's personally pocketed 55.
Net assets, right? Who knows what kind of liabilities? Yeah.
And then in May of 2018, she was listed in UK Sunday Times annual rich list, topping the under 30 ranking with approximately 182 million to her name. I wish.
It makes me sad I'm never going to be on that under 30 category.
Or on a rich list.
Yeah.
I'm only on a list that rhymes with rich.
I will be 30th on the rich list and still be happy.
Oh, that was like the 30 to 30 or something like that. Let's just
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and then you guys, I guess, have to write an essay this weekend, huh?
So, 3 essays.
They told us 3 essays, even though we only have 2. You know, we have to write 3 essays, and if she spelled 1 and only gave us 2 hours, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're not writing in 5
So we're
minutes.
going
It's
to,
at the bar.
we have 3 essays, we're gonna write 2 of them, and issue spot 1 of them.
Is that what she said?
Yes.
Probably.
So we have 3 essays,
4 O's.
but we're gonna issue.
It says write 3 essays and issue spot outline 1 essay.
I talked to her before class, she was telling me about it before.
Well, yeah, we're definitely can only do 2.
They gave us
because
wrong, 'cause I.
they only gave us 2 hours. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
we're only gonna write 2 of them.
No, I thought I had writing in like 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, all right, it's
Yeah. You know, it's good practice to get those done in less time.
Oh, gosh. And then you're gonna study the rest of Saturday and Sunday. Is that how you're
Sure.
gonna do it?
Yeah.
Well, it's next week, it's fine.
I know, that's not
That's crazy, yeah.
So
This is
you-
our last lecture ever.
It'd be good, I'll just.
And I'm like,
Well, it's supposed to happen.
it's starting early though, right? Because I'm like, that's all I have is chapter 9.
After 4 years, I think, you know, we've narrowed it down to half an hour. 4 years of briefing.
I'm like, what else can I find on your dollar for half an hour?
We started a half hour early.
We did start.
We started a half hour early.
See, I showed up early.
Not 15 minutes early, a half hour. What is something?
Well, we finished the book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What more
That
can we
should
do?
say, like,
No, we can go because I need to go sit with fucking Kat for an hour before I go to this movie.
Oh,
okay, I gotta
You,
put out.
you must love these people, man.
I don't. I'm so pissed right now, but I agreed to do it. So
Yeah.
I agreed to cat sit. I told them that I would, you know, go and feed the cat, spend a little bit of time with it, and
And it's the
It'd be
cat's
fine.
cat.
before work and after school. And
Right.
it's just a cat.
Right.
I got a call Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. and they're in Italy, mind you. So that's how
Obsessive.
Yeah. saying,
Cats can live on their own.
why aren't you spending more time with the cat? Because they just got a new alarm system and it tells them,
Oh,
turn
that's
it off.
not cool.
And I was like, because when I go in your house, the cat lays under your bed, hisses at me, and doesn't, like, well, if you spend more time with it, you know, we were really hoping you spend like an hour with it before work and after
Every
school.
day.
And I'm like,
It's 2 hours a
Every
day.
day.
I'm like, the cat lays under your bed and hisses at me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lay on your couch.
Please
for an
come
hour.
out. Please come out.
And they're like, well, we are noticing when you're going and when you're leaving,
That
and you're
is
not
not
spending an
right.
hour. And I was like,
Can you quit? I quit.
Yep.
That's so unreal.
Yeah.
That is really.
I don't think you can, actually, but.
No,
I'm just
I really
like-
can. I'm like,
Yeah.
cats can live.
I mean, what? It has a bowl of food. It's not like I even have to fucking eat it, really.
How do they survive before?
I probably would have shot right back, and I'm like, no, I didn't agree to 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, like, how much do you think 2 hours a day to me is worth?
It's like, I need to wake
Like-
up at 6 a.m.
Like, you need to hire a second person for the afternoon.
And I
if you want
feel
this.
No, the morning, because I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. I'll go after school, but the waking up at 6 a.m. part, that's the hard
Okay,
part.
so next time I see you, you're gonna have like all these scratches.
So much-
No, I literally lay on their couch while the cat hisses at like while the cat's in the bedroom.
Yeah, like the cat's scared. Say, I'm doing you a favor because this cat will have a heart attack if I try to come and pet it.
Just like, really, people?
Oh my god.
The thing is, though, is that I understand if it was a dog, and it's like, even a dog, you don't have 2 hours with it.
No.
But I'd be happier to spend an hour with a dog because the dog will come and love me.
Yeah, you can, like, throw the ball
And I can
around,
bring her for a walk. Not a cat.
No. And no, that's what, like you're taking your life in your own hands. Like I hate cats too. They're creepy. everything about them.
Give me a dog. Give me a gerbil over here.
You know, we talked about how cats like smell terrible and they eat terrible.
What's that?
You say
Cats are like the best house pets. They smell pretty bad.
Yeah,
And their litter box.
Yeah, it's-
Little bugs.
and
I
the
don't
fact that
like
you can't really
their
wash them.
tongue. You know, like when they like
Scratch
lick
your
you and
tongue?
it's like,
Or when they
Yeah,
have.
bugs.
Just,
it's just not right. So
Yeah.
we
Tongues are
started
better.
at 5:30.
we did.
We did.
We did, right?
Yeah.
Because they had to stop us for kids.
And you know what?
And
We're
we
done with
still
the
got done.
Which was at 6.
What the hell are we,
Yeah, like that was it. That's the end of the book. I
what are
could
we
do
doing?
how you pose all day, but
Let's make the world's
please don't do it.
Let's make the most flawless peanut ever. That'll be a problem.
We're all gonna sneak out like one at a time, okay?
I'll create a diversion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, bye guys.
Oh my god, Victor's gonna be
What are you gonna do?
Oh, I found my phone. I can take pictures now.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't want the responsibility of having to like send it to somebody, upload it. Oh,
You had to know I was watching. Did you guys see what he did? It was classic. I mean, like, who's got a phone?
Oh,
He just puts it away.
not me.
Oh my god.
It's responsibility. You gotta send it to people.
That's true. Then
There's
they
all
got,
kinds of intellectual property legal issues.
then they got your email.
No, there's no intellectual property issues because you
I own the
signed
picture.
your rights away.
It's in my face.
I didn't.
Who thought it?
I did not sign that.
Yeah, so every picture we're together, could you just like put a cease and desist on that?
Cease and desist using my face. My face.
Alright, okay.
Thank
You're
you.
so
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
See you next week.
Yes. Next week, just send me what you don't know.
I don't know, but I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, so you guys get distracted over there.
I really totally trust your like joke.
You got this.
Okay, tired of it done.